I have trouble hearing it myself sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. But my hearing is terrible as well, so I have a double whammy.
Yeah, but your voice, it's what made you who you are, no?
Well,
Cigarettes?
and genetics. My father. And cigarettes, probably.
You smoke a lot?
Not as much as I used to.
Okay, so let's start from your voice. When did you find your voice? Because I heard even the first Screaming Trees albums, you didn't sound like you do now. You didn't, like you were looking for something, but it looked like you didn't find it yet. So when did you? There was a moment you said, okay, this is me. This is my tone. This is my voice.
Well, all the early Screaming Trees records, I worked as a repossessing appliances, TV sets, VCRs. Remember when they had video machines? I worked for these people who had a store, and they sold television sets and washers and dryers to people on a rent-to-own basis. And if they didn't make their payments, then I had to go get the TV and bring it back to the shop. So I was hired to do that. And in the back room, their kids had a band. And they decided that they wanted me to be in it as a drummer at first, but I was a terrible drummer, so then they made me the singer. But I didn't know anything about, I was a fan of music, but I had never sung or anything. And the guitar player wrote all the songs, so I was singing songs written by a guy who had a much naturally higher voice than mine. And we weren't proficient enough to change keys to fit my voice. So all those early records, I'm singing songs written by somebody else in a voice that's much higher than my natural voice. That's why they sound funny. In 1989, I made my own record, and that's when I finally sang in my natural range, and then I refused to sing in any other range after that.
And your first solo record should have been folk music covers written with Kurt Cobain, is it right? Can you tell me the story about that?
Well, that's how it started. We were going to make we were both fans of a folk singer named Led Belly, who was an ex-convict, played the 12-string guitar, folk blues guy from, I don't know, the 20s or maybe 30s. And one day we decided maybe we would make a record of all covers of his songs. And then we went in the studio, and after we recorded a couple songs, we sort of lost interest in it. And that's when his record company, who we were going to make that record for, offered me a deal to make a solo record. So that's where it came from. The project that didn't happen with Kurt turned into my solo record.
And it was before the Nirvana became huge, right?
Yes. Yes. But I knew they were huge already.
You were a fan?
I was a huge fan, yeah. I mean, he was a good friend of mine, and I saw him play. I come from a really small town in eastern Washington State, and I saw them play at the public library in my hometown to about 30 people, and that's when we met, and that's when we became friends. And I knew then that he was a genius, but of course nobody could have predicted the impact he would have on music. But I always knew he had a lot more on the ball than I did.
And as a voice, they compare you often to Nick Cave or Tom Waits. Which one you like the most, and you think it's fitting you, or?
Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate Tom Waits for everything he's done, but that's my least favorite comparison in the entire world. I feel like I don't have anything in common with Tom Waits, except that we both have a bit of grit to our voice. If someone wants to compare me to Nick Cave, they're more than welcome to do that, because I think Nick Cave is one of the all-time greats. You know, he's one of the greatest songwriters, performers, singers, nicest guys. So, and I've never met Tom Waits. I'm sure he's a wonderful man as well, but I don't like that comparison. I think it's lazy.
Okay, so you don't see similarities?
I don't, except unless maybe if I sang a Tom Waits song, I might see that there was
You never
something in
thought of
common.
doing that?
No, I liked, in the 90s I listened to Rain Dogs and Frank's Wild Years. I liked those records quite a bit, but I don't know. It's just not a comparison I like. When I was a kid, they used to say I sounded like Jim Morrison, and I hated that comparison also, so. In fact, when I was young, they would say I not only sounded like Jim Morrison, but I looked like Jim Morrison. And then I got to be old, and they said I sounded like Tom Waits, and I looked like Tom Waits. So, you can't win.
Things changes. And when you're on stage, you barely talk to your audience. You always look down. You never smile. Are you comfortable on stage? How do you feel when you're on stage?
Well, for a long time I wasn't comfortable on stage when I started with my first band because of what we already discussed. The songs were difficult for me to sing and I was uncomfortable. But now I enjoy it. I mean, I appreciate guys who run all over a huge stage and, you know, entertain the audience. I could never do it. It takes all my energy just to stand there and sing, you know, and if I start talking and thinking about other stuff, I might forget where I'm at. I sort of have to concentrate on the songs to stay in them. It's really the only time I'm ever actually in the moment of life is when I'm in the middle of singing a song. So I try not to think about anything else. And I'll talk to people if they, you know, want to have a conversation with me from the audience. I might respond, but usually I'll just go on to the next song.
So you don't play the dark guy, you just try to be focused.
Yeah, I mean, do I seem dark to you?
No. But it's true that a lot of people says he never smiles when during the concert. He never. It's just his style. No?
Well, my teeth aren't the best, you may have noticed, so I don't do a lot of smiling.